All righty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting of June 8th, 2020. If you can, anyone that can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
I'm working.
Thank you all for that. I appreciate that. Public announcements. Let's see. Mr. Chapin, anything?
No, sir.
No, sir. Mr. Coyle?
Nope, just get out there and vote.
There you go. Mr. Connolly?
Happened today.
Kevin? Damasio?
Nope. I think last I heard a few days ago there was over 150 people had voted. So still open. Business hours go up to town hall if you want to vote early.
All righty. Thank you. Welcome, Sue. I don't want to ignore you. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good. Any public announcements, Sue?
I have none.
Okay, thanks. I just thought I'd check. Don't want to leave anybody out.
Thank you.
All right. First on the agenda, approve the minutes. The last meeting, please. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of June 1st, 2020. I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Jim. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Okay. Second, vote to allow establishments to serve alcohol in accordance with policy adopted by Selectmen for temporary outside dining.
We can pass over this one. We're under remember that we put this on as a placeholder on the off shot that a House bill signed that would have taken place of the executive order that the governor signed. So the executive order in the vote that you took on Thursday allows me to make that approval. And we did actually several of them today. We had Giardino's, Mia Ragazza, Sorel, Sarcastic Swine, Abington Ale House all applied for a change of premises or an alteration of premises to include the temporary outdoor seating, and they were all approved.
And are you able to approve the liquor license for that too, Scott, or does that have to go through us?
Yeah. Yep. That was, so within your vote the other night, and it's in the policies that you voted for. The only reason that we put the placeholder was on the off shot that the House bill ended up getting signed instead of the executive order. The executive order allows me to do it. The House bill would have required them to still go back to the Selectmen. Okay. And that's why I wanted it left on the agenda, just in case that happened, but it didn't. So we're all good to go. The restaurants are, I don't know if you guys are out and about today, but you'll see that they're all setting up. They were all setting up most of the day. The fire chief and the building commissioner and the health agent, they all went and visited all these spots just to make sure everything was okay.
Scott, as a courtesy, as you approve those, can you just let us know maybe via email, just so we can promote them, or
Yep.
If people come to us and say, hey, why are they doing this? We kind of know what we're talking about a little bit.
Yep. And we've been reaching out to them and like I said, like today it was Giardino's, Mia Ragazza, Sorel, Sarcastic Swine, Abington Ale House, and also the Old Town Cafe, but they do not serve alcohol. I believe we have an application in for Lynch's for 3 tables that they'll be approved. And like I said, again, they were part of the inspection today. I'm just waiting for some paperwork on them. And then, yeah, as they come in, I'll be happy. I'll forward you guys email. Most of this all transpired after 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this afternoon, which was, it worked out good. We managed to get everybody what they wanted.
Thank you.
Scott, now if another place comes and asks, we don't have to have a special meeting.
No,
Right.
the policies as they've been approved will give us the ability to deal with it in-house, through staff and myself.
And Scott, people that apply for an application, they have to show you a seating arrangement and all that stuff, right?
Yep, those policies, what they had required was that they would show us a seating arrangement. They would show us how, the parking flow, how the staff was going to be able to enter and exit safely. They had to follow the COVID checklist. They had to show us that their insurance company was on board with them using this additional space outside, that there was going to be barriers to keep people from wandering outside of the
That mean
space.
it's charging.
So yeah, it was a pretty exhaustive list. It was, developed. We developed it, and KP Law sort of improved on it for us.
Okay.
And again, like we said, we did, not only did we do the inspection or the review of the paperwork, but we also had the chief, the fire chief, and the building commissioner and the health director do a physical inspection.
Okay.
Worked out pretty good.
Yep. Sometimes
Happy
we
to
can get
see.
stuff done.
Happy to see businesses back open and, starting to build back up at least as best they can with the requirements and restrictions.
Yeah, on my way home, I noticed that there were already people eating and seating over at Mia Ragazza, and you'll see Giordino's has a really nice tent set up with some tables and the umbrellas, and I was told that they were doing a great job down Barrett's and everybody else too. So
Awesome.
So yeah, it's good to see that we're getting them up and running.
Great. Any other questions on number 2? Well set. All righty. 3, vote for temporary quorum requirements for a town meeting.
And we got an email today that Sean has no problem with the 50. Right?
Scott, did you hear Ken?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I forwarded you that email. So yeah, you guys had voted, or you discussed putting it down to 50. Sean is in agreement with it. So I think you just need to make that vote.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for vote for temporary quorum requirements for town meeting at 50, correct?
Correct.
I'll make the motion to temporarily lower quorum requirements for town meeting to 50.
Second it.
Would that be town meeting and annual town meeting?
I would
Make
think
that
so.
motion.
Town meeting.
Special and annual.
Yeah.
They're held the same night, right?
Right, but they're 2 separate meetings. So.
Right. And the temporary status only lasts 30 days. That's why I asked.
But yeah, it would be for both meetings.
Okay, so the motion is made for both meetings and it's been seconded. Any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, number 4, discussion and vote on annual town meeting warrant and budget. Scott, do you have any comment on that, or do you want us to just vote on what we, go ahead, sorry.
I guess Sue's here just because I know last week there were several articles that you gentlemen had some questions on. One of the articles I did, and I didn't get the information till late this afternoon. I had a conversation with town council, KP Law, regarding the cable fund and whether it was going to be an enterprise fund. And there was a petitioner's article in there change it from a 53 F and a half to a 53 F and 3/4. And the information that we got from KP Law kind of helps explain the difference or why we should do one or the other and why we can't actually maybe not do anything. But I've only got that, like I said, shortly before the meeting. So I've sent it over to the petitioner for them to review it, and they can review it if they have counsel. So, I don't know if we want to go much into detail on that one or not. There's a lot of moving parts with that.
Right, because you sent that over to us in an email too, Scott, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, like I said, it was fairly late. You probably, even if you have time or had time to review it, it's a bit to digest. And what I think is helpful is if you were to print out, and I can send them to you tomorrow, the actual different sections if you didn't get them of 53 F and 3/4, 53 F and a half, and 53 E, which is I think what we actually did at town meeting last year. And then the analysis from Greg Corbo from KP Law will sort of break down that analysis, what we did, what he thinks what could be done, and what he thinks can't be done. But it is quite a bit there.
Okay, and I know last week we had a lot of questions on articles that we thought should have been in like capital planning and Sue, you want to speak on some of those? I don't know if you know them all. I don't have them right in front of me, but I know it was the police for the building. I know it was a fire for
Apparatus.
It was all the ones that we had borrowing for as opposed to the ones that were in the general
Right.
capital.
So they're technically part of the capital plan, but because we chose to not use free cash and we chose to go out to borrow for those items because you can borrow for those items, they needed separate articles because each article needs a separate wording from bond counsel. So it could have technically been part of the Article 3 with all of the capital on there, but it would have just said borrowing, which isn't sufficient for bond counsel. They need to say borrowing and all the language that goes with it. And so Sonia has provided me with the wording that goes for each individual article. So one of them is specific to the mass water treatment protection grants, and then the other 3 are specific to just borrowing. But in essence, you can't just say it's part of a list of our borrowing under Article or our capital under Article 3 because the bond counsel requires specific wording for the articles themselves. So it's not like it's not part of the capital plan. It has been part of the capital plan. It's just, it needs different wording because we're borrowing instead of using free cash.
Okay, and any other capital plan that we do, we don't borrow though, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I think that's important, I think, for the public to know that too, but, okay. Ken, you also had a question on one of the ones for and Scott, tell me if I'm stepping out of line, not out of line, but if I should wait for this. But can you ask something for the special town meeting that you thought was on there? And do you have any comment on that, or are you all set with that?
Well, Ken had asked about an article for the Affordable Housing Trust, something that would establish an affordable housing trust, because the CPC in their plan is going to fund an affordable housing trust. But there's never been, since I've seen this, the actual language that would establish that affordable housing trust. And it's very specific, and it wouldn't be it's not a quick, simple article to throw together. And I certainly would recommend that we, do that. I think it's an important function, but I think it's okay to fund it. It's just, we won't be able to transfer the funds anywhere until such time as that trust is set up, which will happen either at a if we have a fall zoning town meeting to deal with these other articles, or, when our next town meeting is, that's when I would say we would bring that article to town meeting. But there is quite a bit that, we have to spell out what the actual duties of the trust are, what, how much we'll allow them to do, how much free reign you want to give them, as opposed to how much control the selectmen still want to have over it. And, and really you spell out exactly what the function is of that affordable housing trust. So it isn't just a matter of throwing in an article here that establishes them. There'll be a document that will go with it.
And I agree with Scott on that there is some sort of mechanism that you need. You can put the money in there, but you need a mechanism to spend it. But that is on the annual. So, Tom, as to your question, you said something about the special. So I'm not sure what question you had on the special, but Scott did make a good point on the annual about the CPC affordable housing.
Right, but I thought Ken, and I may be wrong, I thought Ken had asked about this. He thought it was, Ken, did you say it was in the special?
No, I thought it was in the annual town meeting, one of the very first drafts. I know at the middle of February, the Housing Partnership Committee, or the Housing, whatever we want to call it, asked town manager to put together something, and he said he had collected several examples when we forwarded him the information, so he was in a good position to draft this. At some point, this will be reviewed by town council as part of the warrant preparation process. So I know he sent some things to the, I'm sure he went to several other towns to get the information, and I presented him with a lot of information and examples. So it must have just stalled there, or that's what. But I could have sworn I had seen it in one of the early drafts, but maybe it was just my imagination. But as long as we can do that, if we have a fall town meeting or, next spring, we'll I'll get something to, because even though I'm not going to be a selectman, I'll be on that committee, and I will get something to Scott, the town manager. And we also hope to have someone come in when after COVID-19 to explain exactly what the housing trust fund is, and we'll have an expert from the state come in to explain it to. And I know Scott has some background on this too, so that's a good thing. So it's really we need a mechanism to help the town. Our priority was to help fund first-time home buyers program to get the deposit for people, kids that want to stay in town, they can't afford it, and also for senior housing. That's what the main goals of the housing partnership will be. So I'm rambling now, but hopefully in the fall we can get this so we have the money to spend.
Well, and there was one edit that I did recommend that we do put into that CPC article, that the way it read, or the way it reads, it just called out senior housing. And it really should call out just affordable housing. And senior housing is technically, it's a subset of the affordable housing, but if we just put in senior housing, then we wouldn't be able to do affordable housing that's not senior housing.
Right.
And that's not the Affordable Housing Trust should be obviously for all affordable housing.
Those are the main two programs we talked about, is affordable senior housing and also a first-time home buyers program. So maybe they just picked up on that one, but yeah, that's what the housing partnership wants to do. So.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I mean, we'd want to make it all inclusive so their hands aren't tied, and then we can develop the charter, or so to speak, around that.
Okay, like I knew Ken had questioned something. I didn't realize it was, I thought it was the special. My apologies. So, but as long as we sort of got it covered, so.
Can I ask Sue a question about the borrowing for Articles 13, 14, and 15, or 16, whatever you want to call it, those capital plans? What length of time do you think you're going to borrow on those?
I'm sorry?
Short-term borrowing, or what? How long do you think?
It all depends on the expected life expectancy. So I was talking to Sonia today. So the fire engine stuff is 5 years. Obviously, building repairs is 10 years. So and the computer stuff at the school is 5 years. So it depends on like the life expectancy. So it looks like the only one that's a 10-year project would be the siding on the police station. Everything else is 5 years. And keep in mind that this is not a debt exclusion, so it's going to come off of our tax levy next year when the bill comes due.
Good.
It's going to be raise and appropriate.
So every year we're gonna have to raise and appropriate the fees.
Unless we go to a special town meeting to approve to debt exclude it.
Right, or we decide to pay it off early or something like that, which we've done
Right.
before. Okay. All right, thank you.
So Sue, is the plan, and I know that Sonia isn't here, but is the plan to finance them all together?
No, she's doing
Depending
it.
on town meeting?
No, she's doing them separately just so because their borrowing terms are different for the first year, and then the second year she may group certain things together that are at 5 years together or 10 years together. So the plan originally is just to make it a 1-year borrowing, and then after the 1 year, consider what we can group together.
Okay, so she's probably, so it sounds like, and I could be wrong, sounds like she's gonna do a ban, because a ban is 1 year.
Correct.
So that's a bond anticipation note,
Correct.
instead of bonding it. So
Correct.
after the first year, the second year, she's gonna bond that.
Right.
Okay, all right, I just want to be clear about that, thank you.
Tom, I thought you were retiring. Doesn't sound
I
like
am.
you're retiring.
I am. But, all right, so still, we're on discussion vote, annual town meeting. Questions on the town meeting or the budget, or for Scott, or?
Just, I know we haven't had a chance to read what you just talked about, Scott, about the AbCam article, but isn't town council recommending that we don't take up that article and we just do the rewording from the year before?
I think basically what he's saying is that it probably should be a 53 F&a-half as opposed to a 53 E, and that was the intention. And I believe, Sue, that's kind of how we've been treating it, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, and I didn't mention it today because it's a petition article and I didn't really think about it, but once you vote an enterprise fund as a 53 E&a-half or whatever the number is, you can't rescind an enterprise fund for 3 years. So even their petition article might not, you can petition it and they might vote it, but once it gets back to the DOR, they might say, no, you just voted this last year and it has to stay this way for 3 years. Can't guarantee that a petition article can override article from last year, but it is a 3-year vote once you vote an enterprise fund.
What about the part where town council said something about calling it or voting on it as a typo error? I didn't quite understand that. Can you shed some light, Scott?
Yeah, because I mean, he really thinks that if you look back at the discussion and in the way that we've treated the account, that the intention all along was probably for it to be a 53 F&a-half and not a 53 E&a-half. And because there is a difference between those two accounts. I think the E&a-half actually even says it's not for the cable access accounts. So I think that was his thought, was what apparently there was a little bit of back and forth on the floor of town meeting during this vote, that things got amended, and ultimately that what they came out with was that this E&a-half, when it probably, he thinks, and this is just kind of going back, trying to restructure what he thinks might have happened, and what he would say would be just a minor error, was that it should have been this F&a-half, which is, again, specifically an enterprise fund for utility cable television public access. And that's the way that the fund's been treated up until this point. So I think he's thinking that that makes sense. That it was somehow somebody made that error, but I don't know what the petitioner thinks. And I don't know, we have, I believe you got some background from the petitioner, that I know KP Law has that also, but I mean, ultimately it's their article.
Can we hold that article out and I hate to say this, till our next meeting or whatever, or?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's gonna stay on there because it was put on by petition.
Right,
So, I mean, you can have the discussion right up until town meeting on whether you want to support it or not, but it's going to be there. KP Law will be at town meeting.
Right, but-
Obviously, we'll get some more information from the petitioner now that they've seen this opinion. So yeah, we could either meet next week on it or.
yeah, because our charge says discussion and vote on annual town meeting. I don't want to hold everything, but it's certainly up to the members of this board, but I don't want to hold everything off. I mean, we've sort of got to get going and, plus we've got to get that, when do we have to get that warrant out?
Well, and the warrant's not going to change. The only part that'll change will be your recommendation on
The
it.
recommendations, right?
Right.
Correct, sorry,
So
Scott,
if
thank
you
you.
want to hold your recommendation till town meeting floor, that I don't think is a problem. For that matter, I mean, you can vote this warrant and hold your recommendation and make it next week, the week after, or you can make it on town meeting floor. That's up to you.
Okay.
It needs to be posted 10 days ahead of time.
Yeah, but this has to be posted, right?
Right, that it has to be posted. Your recommendations don't need to be there. It just has to be
Right.
posted what's being voted on.
The warrant, yep, okay.
I got a question here that's, I have two drafts. It looks like one that Sean Riley put together. I may be wrong. What are we voting on? The first draft or Sean's draft?
When
I
did,
would-
sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Sean's draft was the one we got today, right? But
I got
were
it in
you
my
making
packet.
edits for that, Sue?
Sean and Scott and Leanne and I met today with Sonia, so I'm not sure what the date on that is, but I did have an update and I sent it back to Sean and Leanne and Scott. So if you did not get what the current version of today, then you're voting on not the current draft.
Oh, boy.
Okay, I picked up my packet the other day and this was with it, so,
So there were very slight changes, Jim.
yeah.
Like changing the article numbers, CPC fund was changed a little bit because of the way it was set up. Sean felt like it could have been layered better so you understand what they're spending and where the funding is coming from. We made a slight change and Scott, I went to you today, but you were in with the chiefs about opening businesses, I think, but we did change the debt services because Sonia did do a borrowing on May 28th and she sent me an update on June 4th. So that article for debt services has been changed, but it's all covered by debt exclusion. So it doesn't change the bottom line and change what we're voting on for the budget, but it doesn't change where the revenue's coming from because the revenue's coming from someplace else. So.
And if anybody has a laptop in front of them, I just forwarded you the most current version.
I have a laptop in front of me, but I'm on a Zoom meeting.
Don't
Sorry.
confuse them.
You
I
can
have
do
two
both.
laptops in front of me, so I can watch both.
You can do
Well,
both.
I'm watching something else on my other one.
Hey, come on. All right, so.
I'm kidding.
A lot of changes. So what you have for both special town meeting and annual town meeting.
Sue, I need
Yes.
you at the computer. We hear you better when you look and not to the right or left.
I'm looking at my computer on my at my desk and I'm looking over here to talk to you guys.
Yo,
So I have two computers going on. But there hasn't been a lot of changes. So if you want me to send you this stuff, I don't know that we can go another week without being behind on posting,
Right.
but
I
nothing
agree.
significantly has changed. That what you have in front of you isn't what we're going to present.
Yeah, we need to vote it tonight, so. Because
Yeah,
we do have,
we should vote the warrant articles, but our recommendations, really, we can wait till next week, or we don't even need to, they're probably not gonna be printed, they're not gonna be printed in the booklet anyway, so.
you just generally need to approve the warrant.
And the
your
budget,
recommendations can come
All right.
whenever.
and the
And like I
budget
said,
too,
the
right?
only change in the
What?
budget is an expense that's covered by our revenue. So, if you approve it as is, you guys are good to let us post. And there's nothing major that, unless some of the questions you had last week were about capital items, that are separate warrant articles. And like I said, it's separate because we have to borrow for those. It's not because we're trying to deviate from a capital, the capital Article 3. It's just because we're going to borrow. But everything else is exactly how you guys have had, we have presented it to you. I know you had some, from my notes, you guys had some questions about Article 17, program income, and for the parking lot at the senior center. I can go through my notes from last week's meeting, but everything that you guys had questions about to me it seems like it's explainable. But if you have more questions, we should answer those questions and move on and approve it tonight so that we can post, so that we can get into the 10-day.
Right, well, I think, Sue, one of the questions, especially that had to do with the senior center, was like, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but if you have your notes, it was like 58,000 and 42,000, which is 100,000, which is what, we had, but I think people are confused about that. Why don't you comment on that, if you don't mind, comment on that, or the notes that you have on it.
Okay, so originally we had $100,000 set aside for the senior center and or the roof. So we got a grant, and the grant covered the cost of the roof. So that $100,000 now became available. But that whole $100,000, part of it can go into stabilization, because we also have $48,000 in program income, which comes from a CDBG grant. And the grant allows for low-income seniors to get money to fix up their houses. So let's say somebody gets $20,000 and we put a lien on their house for $20,000, but they sell, or they unfortunately pass away and their family decides to sell the house before the 20-year lien, they have to pay that money back. So that money goes back into a program income account that would get closed at the end of the year, or we can use it for other CDBG, community development grants, or we can use it for senior center projects. So that 100 that we originally had, we decided put 48 into stabilization, leave the 52 with the Council on Aging for their parking lot, but it costs more than that. And you can use that 48 that we had with program income that we got from people selling their houses prior to the 20 years. You can use that for other community development grants, or you can use it for senior center, senior projects. So we moved that money that we had sitting in a fund that we are going to close into to the general fund at the end of the year. We moved it into that article so we can pave the parking lot. So we kind of, it's a weird way how we split it up, but that's the way we needed to do it in order to get access for the program income money into that parking lot project, and what was left in the roof project into the stabilization.
Right, I just don't want people thinking, residents thinking that, you know, we had 100,000 and yet we're taking 52 and 48, which is 100,000 to, just so people understand that. So hopefully
Yeah.
they'll understand what you just told them, and when you're at town meeting, you can explain it again.
Well, the nice part is that you're ending up with, you know, $100,000 roof and $100,000 parking lot, and it was done with grant money, basically. You didn't pull anything out of the coffers for it. And we're not borrowing for it, you know, and they're two desperately needed items. Obviously, the roof's done and that's great, but that parking lot, you know, desperately needs some attention.
No, that's good. Like I said, it's explained well, we're good. Any other questions on anything? Sue, any other notes that we had mentioned, or?
No, I guess I have other notes, but you guys kind of resolved some of the stuff. You know, we're talking about snow and ice deficit, and which is on the special, but you guys already approved the special, so we won't even go there.
Okay.
And then the treasure collector's articles, we're gonna put on as one vote, hopefully, and then the PEG access, where we're gonna go with that.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. Well, I think we've covered the discussion. Do you want to talk about the vote?
I still have a concern about the PEG article, because town council's saying we shouldn't, a vote on that would be out of order, so.
No, a vote at town meeting, but your vote has nothing to do with that. You have no choice but to leave it on the warrant. It went on there by citizens petition.
Okay.
So you're not, and you know, again, you're not asked to make a recommendation on it tonight. I think you guys can do that at another meeting when we've got more information from council. But right now, I mean, he's not recommending we remove it. He's just recommending that what happens at town meeting floor would be the moderator would call it out of order.
But my concern is that if we don't have the proper wording or something on the,
we don't change the wording of somebody who's, anything has been submitted by petition. It's up to them to change the wording.
So do we allow them to change the wording?
If they want to amend it on town meeting floor, that's where they would do it.
Right, they have to wait, yeah, they have to wait to come to town meeting.
But regardless of their wording, again, town council would have to be consulted, Scott, that whatever they're petitioning, we voted an enterprise fund, and you can't retract an enterprise fund before 3 years in the making. So I don't know what they're requesting is actually legal according to the laws of the enterprise fund.
And as you said, Sue, and I have to agree with you, if that went to the DOR or whatever, and they could say, no, it's 3 years and you have to wait. And I agree with that. I think that would come from the Department of Revenue or whatever, but I happen to agree with that.
Last year we voted them a yearly budget. Now, are they going to be able to have a yearly budget for the next fiscal year? Because I don't see it anywhere. I know at the last town meeting, when they voted this article that we're talking about, they amended it and added numbers to fund their operations for the year. you know, is there a budget for them for next year? Because if they have this enterprise fund, don't they have to have a budget too?
Ken, it is actually part of the Article
Oh,
1
okay.
at the bottom, and you can see that there is an enterprise fund for Fund 450, I believe. Yeah, Fund
450,
450.
cable access,
Yeah.
and 450 is the revenue, anticipated revenue.
But even that they have that, I was saying to Finance Committee on Wednesday, is that we haven't received that kind of revenue to support that kind of expenditure. So
Because it comes in quarterly, correct?
it comes in quarterly, and it's been coming in slowly, and from what I've seen so far, less than $120,000.
And last year they asked for $360,000.
Right. They haven't spent it. They've only asked us for what has come in, and they've provided expenditures for. So they haven't asked for more than what has come in. But at the same time, DOR won't allow us to approve a budget above and beyond 10% of the revenues we receive. And they won't set our tax rate if they can't see that.
So it's very, very confusing, this whole, because I thought last year we voted exactly what they wanted.
We voted what they wanted, but it was year one, so we didn't know, we didn't have the anticipation of the revenues. Now we have what the revenues are coming into us. So DOR is not going to say you received 140 or $240,000, but they want 360. DOR will not approve that going into our tax rate setting, because as much as they are enterprise funds, they are part of setting our tax rate.
But what I'm saying is that we changed the wording of the article to be exactly the way Abington Cam wanted it, unless we voted the wrong thing. But that's what they got up at town meeting and met with us before and changed the wording, because they had two options. They had the enterprise or the revolving. The one that we voted on at town meeting is what they asked for. AbCam asked for, and now I guess I don't know. They're changing it, or they don't. Maybe we messed up. I don't know.
In my opinion, any way you look at it, we voted it as an enterprise fund. They want to switch it to the 53.3 F3 3/4, which changes it to PEG access. It's still an enterprise fund in the long run. So they need to accommodate for their revenues in order for the DOR to prove their expenditures.
Right, and the town's not going to spend the money. We can't. It's their money.
Right.
Right. No matter what kind of fund
We
it's in.
can't, right, we can't spend it out of anything, for any other reason other than cable access. But if we don't have the money and we can't prove the money, DOR is not going to prove it for the tax rate, and they're going to say that we need to take it from our general fund revenues to cover this budget if the budget is more than what they took in last year.
I'm just concerned that this town meeting is supposed to be streamlined and run smooth, and this sounds like it's going to be a cluster on the town meeting floor. So that's all.
This one might be.
No, just unless we can get it straightened out beforehand. That's all. I'm done.
So we want to vote on the annual town meeting and the budget?
So before they do it, I mean, will there be, because I think those numbers, as we're going through this, would probably end up having to be reduced to a realistic number on town meeting floor. So we'd be going in and dropping the 367, the revenue, and the expenses down to 240 or something.
And how do you account for the quarterly money that comes in after town meeting?
Well, obviously that would be in a new year, Jim.
Right, it's in FY21, Jim, not FY20.
So what we're trying to put the guesstimate on, and we only have a half a year's worth of, or do you even have that much half year?
We have 3/4.
So we have to look at what those 3/4 were and then try and make an estimate based on that, what that revenue is gonna be. And I think that that number should be amended down to whatever that is. It can't be 360 if we're only gonna bring in 240.
And that's something the petitioner has to amend? Is that
They
correct?
submitted the
Well-
budget, but I think we can change those. We should be able to change the enterprise numbers, right?
Right, so the petitioner is only asking to change the form of the enterprise fund from enterprise to PEG access, which is sort of the same. They're not petitioning to make the budget. So we can recommend the budget to be reduced based on what we see as current revenues.
Right, should we do that now before we get this to print?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say, well, you have to vote it. And so I think what you can do, because you're reducing the budget, and you can do it. We can amend that on the floor, but we have no choice but to post this.
Post what we have right now, Scott?
Yeah, we have to post this warrant. This is part of the warrant.
All right, so
The
if I
motion can
understand this,
reduce, but the motion can reduce the,
We can, yeah, we
budget.
can definitely reduce it at town meeting.
but at town
We
meeting,
will, yeah,
we can't, so we can't do anything till town meeting.
right.
Okay.
Right, well, at least, but then we'll have, we can go back and just look at what we feel is a more accurate number for that. This is what they submitted to us, but it just, if we start looking at the actual revenue, it just doesn't make sense.
Right,
And it's not, it's not that we're trying to, we just want it to be a little more accurate, that's all.
well, and as Sue said, if we don't do that, the DOR is gonna approve our tax rate, and that can be a big problem. Again, I'll entertain a motion on, a vote on the annual town meeting warrant and budget. I think we have all the information that we need. We may have to, or not may have to, we will make changes at town meeting, unfortunately. But we've got to get this out, so.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the annual town meeting warrant and budget as drafted.
I will second that motion.
All right, any further discussion on that? I think everybody is, hopefully we've covered everything, even on the cable access or whatever, so. Ken, anything or?
Nah.
Come on,
Okay.
Joe.
All right, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye,
Aye.
opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right. What do I have next? Town managers report.
Well, since the last time.
Did I get that in writing?
Was last, Thursday? So, yeah, I think we covered it all in the beginning of the meeting with, basically, we've been working on getting these restaurants open and tightening up the budget or the warrant.
Okay. Our next meeting would be the 15th. Gentlemen, any discussion on that or?
We'll vote our recommendations on the articles. Right?
On the 15th? Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Will the police report subcommittee have an update for us by then, do we think?
I hope so.
I would say so. I mean, we could put it on the agenda and at least talk about it.
Don't sign off, gentlemen. I'll be right back.
Yeah, do your thing, Tom. Don't worry about us.
There you go. I'm not going
Middle of
to.
a meeting, Tom. Yeah, I think we could at least have a discussion, you know, would be good.
Let's all just exit our screen so when he comes back, he's looking at Nova.
I knew you couldn't hold out.
Well, I wasn't going to be the only one. That's just dumb.
You weren't.
So,
It's like high school. If the teacher's not here for 5 minutes, you can leave.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Oh,
All those in favor?
back now.
Aye.
He
All
was
those in
waiting.
favor? Hold on.
Thank
Oh, here we go.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right,